I'm super excited to talk with you about smart competitive tracking today. Just a heads up, what are you going to see? First, I will give you a bit of a context of the case study. It's going to be of one of Austria's largest retail chains. We'll then dive deeper into process mining and the value chain of competitive tracking, which we always believe is like really making the difference. And then we will show you the details of how we actually did it. And I will give you a short outlook in the next 20 minutes. So just a quick context for you. As we said, client background, it's one of the largest retail chains in Austria. The motivations from the client when they approached us for help was that they wanted to start monitoring competitors' move more in real time. They wanted to analyze the competitors' content performance in social media. And they also wanted to find some inspiration for efficiencies and to optimize processes within the company. We will talk about that of how something that you maybe perceive as being just on the surface with social media content monitoring can actually lead to deep process innovation within your company. At the same time, it was important for them to reduce the manual work, as we hear so often, but they also wanted to improve the quality and the consistency of the output of the monitoring, and they wanted to provide people with easy access to data for further manual analysis. Also something that we very much stand behind it. So we don't believe that it's necessary to automate things 100%, but just take the parts that actually produce a lot of work, automate them, and then still leave room for human intervention to make things better. So the ultimate goal for them, to visualize it in another way, is to reduce or to compress the time that it takes from gathering information, analyzing them, to then getting into action mode. Just for you quickly, competitive landscape, so that you have a bit of understanding in Austria, you can actually throw the supermarkets into three buckets. Bucket number one is the leaders, where you have Spar against the Rewe Group. And then each bucket is, of course, within the bucket in competition and in competition with the other buckets. Then you have the discounters with Hofer and Lidl, and you have regional players with Emprise and Unimarkt. Most likely you're familiar with competitive tracking or competitive benchmarking. Here's just like an example of how it usually looks like. So it's a slide, it rather looks random, or it's part of a presentation that's going to be sent out. And what we uncovered with the client is that there are like four big problems usually. Number one, as we said already, it's done manually. So that means it's usually time consuming to do it. There is always a risk of human error because you do it most of the time via copy paste. So you go somewhere, you copy some numbers, you need to put it into the right field, then otherwise your analysis is going to be wrong, or it could be that you're missing something. Yeah. It also involves all the time some subjective interpretation of the data because you have a limited point of view. And in a lot of cases, you also have limited data sources because, as we said before, in Austria, there are 7 supermarkets like really active. If you take now 7 times that you would need to go to Instagram, to TikTok, to Facebook, to Pinterest, to YouTube, to all other social media channels, it's just like a lot of stuff that you would actually need to look at. So most of the times, companies cut that actually short and miss out on data. Point number 2, in a lot of cases, it's just a semi-structured process. So there is not really a checklist that people could follow when somebody is on holiday or somebody is sick. It a lot of times involves no templates that you're going to use. So you're constantly reinventing the wheel. Point number 3 is that a lot of times we see that there is like poor data quality. It's either you're missing some quantitative data or you're missing some qualitative data. If you have certain tools that help you with one thing, most of the time the other thing is missing. Yeah. A lot of times there are missing links to the content. So if you receive the document or the presentation, it's not easy for you to go back if you find something interesting and see the original post and the source. A lot of times you don't have access to previous data that is going to be used so that you can compare it. It's like, what did they do like a week ago, or what did they do like 3 months ago? And most of the time you just take the data as you get it and you're not trying to enrich it, which actually leaves a lot of potential of the data unused. We're going to talk about that more intensively later. And the last thing is poor output formats, meaning most of the times it's just like a simple presentation. There's no interactive interface and there is no common knowledge pool that people can access. Like either you received the email and then you're part of it, but if you, for whatever reason, haven't received the email from last week or something happened or you've been on holiday, then you're just missing out on data and you don't know what your colleagues are talking about. So, as we said, process mining and the value chain is something that we very much believe in because we have the fundamental understanding that you need to be deep into the process and the value chain to really uncover the value with AI and automation. What you see here is what we worked out with the client. It's like a collection of different scraping sources that we are using and the quality that those sources have depending on what we are actually trying to find out with the client. You see that the scraping sources that are available to us go from social media to the website of the competitors, to newsletters and digital leaflets, to the job portals, which we think it's interesting, to press releases, and to corporate influencers. On the other hand, we can also look for specific categories if we are looking for offers, for promotions, for innovations that they're doing, retail openings, events, their corporate values, recipes, or how they interact with the community. Based on the color that you see, like the more intense the purple is, the better the different scraping sources are actually suitable for the specific topic. What we are going to talk about in this webinar is solo the first part about social media monitoring. This is what we can actually share with you because that's all publicly available data that we have for the different areas. As I said before, we very much believe in the value chain and how important it is to fully understand it. So we work through it with the client. It's basically on a simplified version, goes through 5 steps. From number 1, the data collection, so actually going to the sources, in this case, like social media networks and collecting the data of the different social posts. Then is step number 2, the data enrichment that sometimes you do by actually like trying to work with some quantitative data. In most cases, you don't work actually with qualitative data, which is one of the reasons why you have poor data. Step number 3 is then once you have all the data together is that you do the data analysis. Step number 4 is that you need to do some kind of formatting that is easier to consume for your audience. And then number 5 is the publishing. So that process solo for the first part of social media took the client usually like 8 hours per week. What you see there, that was all done pre-automation. So one person was basically spending one day just doing that, preparing the data. Once we started to work with the clients, and we will show you in a second what we've actually done, we managed to reduce that to 45 minutes. So it's like almost a 90% increase in terms of just time savings that we achieved for the client, and something that took a person a day before is now done in less than 1 hour. But not just that. When we look at the results, we actually clustered them in like 3 different categories. What we also see with other projects most of the time, it's category number 1 is about efficiency, category number 2 is about the quality, and category number 3 is then about the potential to actually transform what you're doing here. So as we said, almost 90% faster than before. That means 7 hours of free time to do work that's more valuable for that person. And we can also see that there's an increased consumption by the audience, where we got the feedback that this is the best tracking that they ever received. In terms of quality, it also got way better. So we are able to track 5 times more data sources than before. We are also more up to date. So there's only a 1 hour delay between when we are looking at the data and when it's received by the audience. Then the next thing is that when it comes to transformation potential, we also managed to achieve for the client that they can react faster to social media moves from their competition. They can also adjust their media strategy based on the monitoring results that they see, and they can use it as inspiration for their content marketing. And also business innovation in terms of logistics, I will touch up on that later, is now also possible because of the solution that we implemented. So if we take a look at the details, then number 1 would be data collection. So diving deeper into data collection, what we are actually doing is we collect all the relevant data points to each of the social media posts from the competition. That means in total, we get for each social media post around like 100 data points that are connected to it. Some examples of what you're actually going to see or what we are using is the publishing date and time. We get the caption from the social media post. We get the images if it's an image post. If it's a story, we get all the images. We get the video if it's a reel or a TikTok video. Obviously, we get quantitative numbers about the likes, the comments, the play count, the view count, the video duration, the hashtags, the mentions. We even know the music that they are using for their different videos or in the background of their photo stories. So there is like really a lot of data that is available to us suddenly, and that we can use for further analysis. But this is just the basic data that would be available for everybody. It becomes even more important and interesting, as we said, when it comes to then step number 2, data enrichment. So with data enrichment, it means that during an automated data scraping, AI is helping us to enrich the data to make it more valuable for further analysis. That means so when we have a brand that is actually using a video to promote something or a post, then we can see what are actually the featured products that they are promoting. We can see if they use special celebrities or if they are doing collaborations with brands. We see if they are targeting like a special location. We can identify which target group they're actually targeting with. We can also identify what kind of category of post they're actually doing, if it's a promotion, if it's for an event or anything else. We can compare it in terms of brand consistency, if that is in line with the style and the branding that they usually do, or also the newness of something that they do. If they've run something similar already like a couple of weeks ago or a couple of months, or if it's something that's like changing for them. And we can also work out what is the call to action. So what do they actually want from their consumer or customer when they're watching it. And we think that, again, these are just some examples, but we think it's like very interesting to then, as we said, further enrich the data to get more insights out of it. Step number 3 is then the data analysis that we automated with the client. So the data analysis, I think we have like 3 big areas where we are actually helping the client. Number 1 is a visual analysis where we help the client with a combination of automation and an AI to actually take a look at all the videos, take a look at all the images and get a visual analysis of all the posts that the competition is doing. Step number 2 is classic stuff. We have the data, as we said before. We're going to do a quantitative analysis, starting from the obvious things like what are the likes, the comments, the play, the video views. So also meshing visual data with quantitative data. And step number 3 is qualitative data. So actually then taking a look at the hashtags, at the captions that they're using, trying to understand the category with all the data enrichment, and creating a qualitative summary for each of the competitors, what they're currently doing, comparing with the quantitative numbers, like how well is it working, and with a visual perspective, it's like how are they moving their brand or their tonality or personality. So that's the part of the data analysis. In terms of data formatting, as one of the last points, what was important for us was also that it's not just a presentation that we give to the client, but that we actually create an interface for them that everybody can access and work with. And what you're going to see here is just like a digital interface that we provide to the client, where everybody has access to all the data points that we have, with like the most important facts. In this case, it's like what were exactly the posts that the different brands were using. Directly on the interface, take a look at the image. You can also directly take a look at the video if you want, but you can also go back to the original post, check it on Instagram or any other platform. You see the caption there. So it's really an interactive interface that is suddenly available to everybody. And that creates also this common knowledge pool within your organization. So that when you get a report with synthesized information, you can always go back, look at the data source and see for yourself what was the specific post or what were the number of posts brands were doing or why something was working very well. And then in terms of like data publishing, so that might be like the most traditional thing of it is how we are going to distribute it within the organization. It's going to be an automated weekly email briefing that consists basically out of like 4 parts. One is an executive summary where there is a condensed written up version of what's the most important thing that you need to know this week. Number 2 is that you actually get a quantitative analysis, meaning, okay, what is really important there in terms of numbers. Number 3 is then a qualitative analysis. What is each of the competitors doing? And number 4 is the recommendations. Okay, so what does that mean now for marketing, for communication, and how can you move on in the best possible way to turn this information actually into action? But as we said, the email is not the only thing that you're going to receive. The other main thing is that you're getting access to this interactive dashboard that you can use to improve and really go there and take a look at the details by yourself. The Outlook is you can really use it to reduce the time from information to action dramatically. You can use it either to pull in information into your organization. This is what we're currently doing with the competitive monitoring. You can use it for internal processes to improve the flow of information, and you can also use it to push it out when it comes like to the publishing of content. What I said before, what we think is interesting is through the monitoring of other things like digital leaflets, we're also able to identify the promotions that other supermarkets are running. And we are now very interested in looking into actually if there are opportunities to improve then the logistics of a supermarket, meaning when your competitor is running promotions on certain products, that you're going to push back the logistics for your own products, because you know when they're running a promotion on the weekend, most likely you're going to sell less products of this category on the weekend. So you're going to try to divert the trucks with the product to actually come a little bit later so that you don't have the products lying in your supermarket when somebody else is running a promotion, which is one of the transformative aspects that can actually come out of a tracking like this. And if you are actually interested in competitive tracking and what's possible, then it would be super cool if you would reach out to us, because we are looking for further partners. We have some more ideas for prototypes and MVPs in the competitive tracking area. So if you are interested in that, please reach out to us. If you have any other new idea or use case that you would like to see or test out in terms of AI and automation, then of course you can reach out to us as well. But we're especially interested in moving further with the competitive monitoring and tracking because we think it has a lot of potential. And as the last thing, I want to invite you again to our next webinar in 2 weeks. So we're diving there more into how you can use AI and automation to leverage and inspire your content marketing, where we have another super interesting case that we would like to share with you. And that's it so far. Thank you everybody for joining. And then hopefully see you again in 2 weeks with our next webinar. Take care.